Hey everyone, welcome back. My name's dustinkreis, and here it is, the top 5 of 2013. Hopefully everyone watched the other two parts to see where all the other games ranked, but I figure a lot of people will just probably pick this video since it's the meat and potatoes. And I plan on kind of spending a little time talking about each one here because these games just wowed me from top to bottom. And in the case of one of them, it's been at the top of the list the entire year. And I think it came out in February. And that's this game right here, Fire Emblem Awakening for the Nintendo 3DS. And I've played a few Fire Emblem games, but this came out and it is perfect. I mean, the top 5 games here are going to be just perfect games, and all the improvements made to it, the fact that if you don't want to play the hardcore way of permadeath, you can turn that off. And I mean, Chance is playing this right now, and he's really close to beating it, and he hasn't even leveled up his healers, but he's still having a fun time playing it. So the fact that it's accessible, Fire Emblem finally is accessible to everyone who wants to give it a shot. You really have to commend Nintendo for doing that. And there's been a lot of criticism this generation because a lot of these sort of hardcore games like this and the next game I'm going to talk about and Etrian Odyssey, they've all kind of allowed you to change the difficulty for your own style of play. And a lot of people are getting really pissed about this. But I think it's great because it gets more people into the series, and the more people that are into this and that buy this game, that means we're going to get another Fire Emblem. And personally, I think that's fantastic because it was kind of touch and go with this as to whether we were going to get it or not. But we got it. It was amazing. I loved that you made your own character, and it really felt personable. And the whole thing with the relationships in the game, building relationships between units, and having them create offspring that would come back in time and help you was really awesome as well, because it really allowed for a lot of flexibility and customization in your army. And add on top of that DLC, and I mean this, if you're into not only Fire Emblem but just strategy RPGs, this is a gold mine, and it is so worth every penny because there's just so much game here for your buck, you know. The graphics are astounding, especially the cutscenes are just absolutely gorgeous. The music is fantastic. It uses 3D well. You know, it's one of those games that you might want to leave the 3D on just to see some of the cool, they're kind of subtle effects, but at the same time, they're really awesome as well. But yeah, Fire Emblem Awakening, if you do not have this in your 3DS collection, get it, because it's probably dropped in price a little bit, and it's totally worth it. The next game really took me by surprise, and I am not a big fan of this series. I have a lot of the games, and I've tried to play a few of them, and it's kind of hit or miss with me, but this one hit, and it hit really hard, and that is Shin Megami Tensei 4. And this is another one of those games that it comes from a classically hardcore series that's kind of loosened the reins a little bit and allowed you to play the game even if you're not super hardcore in SMT. Because I always felt this series was one of those that unless you got in kind of on the ground floor, it kind of left you behind, because it's one of those series that for a newcomer to come into this, it's really daunting. And this game really not only eases you into it, but at the same time is just welcoming of new people. You can lower the difficulty down and just kind of charge through the game. And, you know, the demon fusing, I feel like it was a lot more simplified in this. Maybe it's just that it finally clicked with me. But, yeah, I absolutely loved this game. And it's, I mean, even though it kind of dumbs things down a bit, it is still super hardcore with its multiple endings, and just the storyline in general is pretty awesome, especially once you get to the end and you realize what you're actually doing. Very, very surprising. They took the game from a first-person dungeon crawler into a third-person. And in doing that, it makes it feel more like a traditional RPG. It does have sort of a Pokemon aspect where you have to not capture your monsters, but you have to negotiate with them to join you. And the negotiations are the only thing that I felt kind of hampered the game a little bit, because it doesn't seem like there's a real rhyme or reason to it. It's just, okay, I'll come with you. I feel like coming with you. And, you know, it's more, I felt like it was more luck than anything to get these demons. But, yeah, just top to bottom, really, really surprised about this. And for a long time, I kind of was not thinking about getting it because of my history with the Shin Megami Tensei franchise, but this is really making me look forward to future games because I think they finally found the right balance of classic hardcoreness and enough accessibility that anyone can play if they want to. So if you haven't picked this one up as well, definitely get this for your 3DS. If you haven't noticed, already 2 of the top 5 games for 2013 are 3DS games, and if you don't own a 3DS yet, you're a fool, because there's absolutely no reason why everyone who says they're a gamer should not have should have this system. I mean, you should have it. Top 3, and this one was difficult because the top 2 really haven't shifted all that much until kind of recently. I kind of reassessed things and kind of rethought how I wanted to do things. And at number 3, The Last of Us on PS3. I adore Naughty Dog. I played Uncharted 1 and just had a blast with it. I never played the older games. They did Jak and Daxter, right? Yeah. I never played those old games. I think they did Crash Bandicoot as well. I never played those either. I just started with the Uncharted's and loved Uncharted 1, loved Uncharted 2, and this is spectacular. I'm so glad they did not go the Uncharted route, because that would not work for this game. This is one of the first survival horror games, if you can call it a survival. Yeah, it's a survival horror game. That I really felt like I was trying to survive. You find just crafting items around, you're scavenging in all these abandoned houses and stuff like that to craft shivs and things like that. It really kind of evoked a very survival mindset. Like most games with these types of enemies, fighting the humans kind of felt more satisfying in some ways than dealing with the infected. The infected is more of a stealth type thing where you're just trying to avoid them. Sometimes you do have to fight them, but more often than not, you just kind of just let them do their thing and try to stay out of their way. Whereas with the human aspect, I felt like for the first time, it was really kind of a strategic thing where you could draw attention to one spot and sneak around the environment and sneak up behind them and shiv these enemies instead of having a firefight. The combat was really, really satisfying in this. And the storyline, probably one of the most mature storylines in games today. And I don't mean mature in that people are saying, fuck you, and there's blood everywhere and stuff like that. I mean mature in that it actually asks the player to think about things. And especially that ending. That ending is just... I am so surprised that we got an ending like that in a video game, because that's the type of stuff you see in really well done films. And this is a very well done interactive film, and that's the way I have to put it, because from start to finish, even if the opening of the game has been spoiled for you, it's still such a thrill and a gut punch, and just everything about this game. Especially my favorite segment, which was winter, because it goes through the seasons of 1 year, and winter was just, when I got to that part, I was completely blown away that the game would do that kind of a 180, and so good. if you guys have not played The Last of Us, then you are really doing yourself a disservice, because, you know, we can quibble about, because when it came out, it was very, 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 very hyped, you know, and everyone's like, oh, you know, it's not that great, you know, what are those people talking about? But when you look at the game on a whole, and not just sort of the gameplay itself, but just on a whole, and encompass and see what they're doing with it, you cannot diminish its quality. It's just that good. The graphics, this might be the most beautiful console game of this generation. It's just mind-blowingly gorgeous. The acting is so well done. It's a ride. It's a journey. As much as Journey was a journey last year, this is kind of a journey as well. And by the end of it, you just get to the point where you just feel completely satisfied with this game. So number 3, The Last of Us. Now, what could possibly knock that game out of second place? What game could possibly do that? We're going from a completely cinematic experience to a completely gameplay-driven experience, and that is number 2, The Legend of Zelda: A Link Between Worlds. What is Nintendo doing? Because this game, it seemed like this game got zero hype, and it's better than every modern Zelda game I can think of. I love this from top to bottom. Link to the Past is my favorite Zelda game, and once I got past the graphical mindset of this game, sort of the presentation, I fell right back in love with what made Zelda great. And it's so amazing how that core Zelda gameplay is still perfect. I mean, this could have gone really badly, and they just nailed it. The whole thing about turning into a 2D image and walking around along the walls, it feels like it's just a part. It doesn't feel like a tacked on gimmick. It feels like it's intricately part of the game. You know, it doesn't tie into the Link to the Past story all that closely, as Zeldas usually don't. But to revisit that world and just sort of that mindset and hear the remixed music, and to see Link from the manual of A Link to the Past, you know, rendered in 3D form, is really something special. And I don't know if kids today will pick this up and it'll affect them the way it affects us old folk, but it really goes to show you that a back to basics approach is not always a bad thing. And sometimes, you know, going back to what made these series great back in the day is really just a great palate cleanser. You know, like Final Fantasy Dimensions is a very old school, you know, 16-bit Final Fantasy on iOS, and it was fantastic. You know, a lot of people like these new Super Mario Brothers games, and that's kind of a throwback to how Mario used to be. It really makes me want to see what Nintendo would do if they took some of their other franchises and really went back to basics. If they took a Metroid, put it, you know, don't do like this 3D graphical style. Do a really awesome sprite-based thing. Release it on the 3DS, 2D Metroid, exploring a new planet. Who cares about the canonical storyline? You know, we don't... I want to explore a planet with Samus Aran again, you know, the way I used to. And I think the success of this game might make Nintendo look more... It's a fine line with Nintendo, because on the one hand, I feel like they trade too much in nostalgia, but when it's this kind of nostalgia, and it brings back that classic feel, aside from just bringing back classic characters, I really have to commend that. And, you know, Mega Man did the same thing with Mega Man 9 and 10, and you know, they're kind of doing the same thing with Mighty Number 9 now. This retro approach to games is really kind of catching on, and I like that. And if you want to play not only the best Zelda released in a long time, but just one of the best games released, especially this year, pick up Legend of Zelda: A Link Between Worlds. Now, as you see there, before we get into the number 1, I just want to just pause and make like a brief mention. As we see there in the top 5, there are 3 3DS games in the top 5. And not to mention how many 3DS games were in just the other two videos. I think without a doubt, the system of the year is the 3DS. It really came from nowhere. I mean, it was really bad for a while, and then it's got so good over the last year that there's absolutely no reason why you should not have a 3DS in your collection. The games are the library is just getting so good that it's a must-own system for gamers. So before we get to the number one game, I just want to talk briefly about the 3DS there, just to say I think it's the system of the year. You know, most improved, best library, whatever category you want to put. I think the 3DS has got it beat. So that leaves us with the number one game of 2013, my personal number one game of 2013. And if you follow the channel, you probably already made your guess what it is. And it was the number one game since I beat the game and really started thinking about the game and realizing what they actually did with this game, and that is BioShock Infinite. I am a huge BioShock fan. I think BioShock might be my favorite franchise this generation. And when I first started playing Infinite, I was like, alright, this is cool, but, you know, Columbia's no Rapture. It doesn't have that sense of history that Rapture did, and since it's a floating city in the sky, it kind of didn't feel as real as Rapture did. And as you move through the game and you start to realize where the storyline is going and what they're doing, and really it's not until you play it the second time that everything just clicks. And you're like, shit, what did they do? You know, sort of innocuous comments made by Elizabeth, or just scenes between Elizabeth and Booker the first time you play through, take on so much more meaning. And I remember playing the second time through and getting to a point, it's not really spoiler-esque, you're on a beach and you're trying to find Elizabeth, and she's off dancing with this group of people who are playing music. And as you walk up to her, she walks up to your HUD there and says, "Mr. DeWitt, will you dance with me?" And if you know where the storyline is going to go, that scene just rips you open, because you realize who these two characters are and their relation to each other and what this scene really is without them even knowing it, you know. And that's a testament to great writing, when you watch it one time and you see one thing, and then every time you in this case play the game again, things take on new meanings. And the game really lives up to its subtitle of Infinite, especially when you get to the end of the game and you sort of take it all in. And it's one of those things that even Steven and I are still, with the release of Burial at Sea, we're still kind of debating what this game actually is about, and where can they go from here? Can they even make another BioShock game after this game? Because what this game does is effectively opens up infinite possibilities and closes off every possibility at the same time. And that's kind of what Infinity is. It's everything and it's nothing at the same time. And just absolutely starting to lose my voice because I've done all three of these videos in a row. Absolutely brilliant. Just the scale of the game, the scope of the game, what it's trying to get across, its tie-ins to the original games comes as quite a shock. As quite a BioShock. But anyway, yeah, it was really, for a long time, it was really pushing between this and The Last of Us, because I think The Last of Us tells a much more traditionally focused narrative, whereas this is a much more abstract sort of idea, and then it lets your brain kind of fill in some of the pieces. And I look at this game and, I just played it through again not that long ago, a couple months ago. And I'm still just in awe by it, by its creativity, its scope. And, you know, we can talk about, well, the combat's not as good as it was in Bioshock 1, and, well, you know, the graphics aren't that great, and blah, blah, blah. But, like I said with The Last of Us, when you take it as a whole, and you understand where this goes in terms of just narrative push, you know, so brilliant. So anyway, just as a quick recap, at number 5 we had Fire Emblem Awakening. Number 4, Shin Megami Tensei 4. Number 3, The Last of Us. Number 2, The Legend of Zelda: A Link Between Two Worlds. And number 1, with a bullet, Bioshock Infinite. And that concludes my top games of 2013. Like I said in the original video, if you don't see a game here that you liked, it probably means I didn't play it. There was a couple games like Batman Arkham Origins. I got so pissed off at the what was the guy's name? Deathstroke. The Deathstroke fight. I went and traded it back in. Resident Evil Revelations. It pissed me off so much that it would have been below Star Trek, because it's just like the game kind of goes even keel, and then it gets to that final boss battle. It's like difficulty spike, and it's just like I couldn't beat the game, so I traded it back in as well. So since I don't have those in the collection anymore, I can't really do them in this list. But I feel pretty good with my list. It's something that I've kind of, you know, looked at, you know, every now and then, every couple of days, just to make sure that this is how I wanted to solidify things. And I feel pretty confident with Bioshock Infinite as being my game of the year. But you know, if you don't see a game on here, or you think the list should be reorganized, you are more than welcome to do your own list in the comments below, or make your own video. You know, I don't play Call of Duties or first-person shooters, so if you're going to get down, just go down there and go, Ghost was the best game this year. You know, piss off. But anyway, that is the top games, my top games. Let me reiterate that, my top games of 2013. I want to thank you guys so much for watching. Take care. I'll see you in 2014.